The VIP lounge in San Francisco was buzzing that night, but nobody expected what was about to unfold. Wack 100 claims he had Fabolous cornered, yet the supposed king of New York hip-hop allegedly bolted right in front of Fat Joe, with 30 to 40 witnesses watching. The story sounds almost unreal. Could the LA boogeyman really make a legendary rapper shake in the Bay? According to Wack, the interaction started casually. Fat Joe greeted him, everything smooth, professional, but once his name was mentioned, Fab supposedly beat his feet and disappeared within seconds. Whispers and footage were sent to phones, fueling the drama online. But as the narrative spread, skeptics raised questions. Fabolous has a history of standing his ground. Why would he run from Wack 100, a man many respect and fear in certain circles? This isn't just about egos clashing. It's a collision of street credibility, industry politics, and narrative control. Wack 100 knows how to spin stories for maximum attention. Is he exaggerating? Building leverage? Or is there truth behind the claims? Fans are split. Some see fear. Others see a calculated move, a rapper ignoring someone who sought conflict, keeping things professional. In this breakdown, we're dissecting the club drama, separating hype from reality, and asking the ultimate question: did Fabolous really run, or is this just a story engineered to make headlines? One thing is certain: the VIP lounge that night became a stage for power, perception, and suspense, and what you think you saw might not be the full story. The VIP lounge at the Wells Fargo Bank in San Francisco was packed, dimly lit, with the hum of conversation and the clinking of glasses filling the air. It was supposed to be a normal night, a place for networking, partying, and showing face, but the tension that night would turn it into something unforgettable. Wack 100 had just arrived, and with him, a reputation as the so-called LA boogeyman, a man whose presence alone could shift energy in any room. As he walked into the VIP section, he was greeted by familiar faces, including Fat Joe, who nodded and offered a greeting that seemed casual but carried weight. Wack moved through the lounge, confident, his presence commanding attention, and then he claimed something remarkable happened. Fabolous, one of New York's most respected names in hip-hop, allegedly noticed him and made a hasty exit. The claim was shocking. 30 to 40 people supposedly watched Fab beat his feet and disappear in seconds. According to Wack, the sequence was almost cinematic. He approached the VIP, everything seemed calm. Fat Joe acknowledged him, conversation flowed. And then, the moment his name was mentioned, Fab's demeanor changed. He moved quickly, blending into the crowd, seemingly intent on vanishing. Wack described it as though time slowed. The glint of watches, the reflection of chains in the dim lights, the shuffle of feet on the polished floor, all captured in the minds of witnesses. But skepticism quickly emerged. Fabolous had a history of standing his ground, whether it was confrontations with Ray J in Los Angeles or heated moments in previous clubs. Could a man of his reputation really be rattled, even for a second, by Wack 100? To many, it seemed improbable. The story itself was explosive because it challenged perception, street respect versus industry hierarchy, reputation versus the narrative being spun online. Witnesses in the lounge observed, some whispering to each other, others recording snippets of the encounter on their phones. Even though Wack painted a dramatic picture, the reality was likely more nuanced. Fab's movements could have been strategic, a simple act of indifference rather than fear. Not every decision to leave a room immediately is born out of panic. Sometimes it's wisdom, timing, and prioritizing peace over confrontation. Wack's account didn't just stop there. He compared this alleged run to previous incidents involving his associates, including a recent chaotic situation in San Francisco. Linked to Lil Baby, where tensions escalated in public. The parallels were drawn to suggest that he carried the same energy wherever he went, that his presence was enough to disrupt the normal flow of events. It was a claim that implied dominance, control, and a reputation that transcended cities. Yet, in analyzing the story, a lot of pieces didn't fully align. Fabolous history demonstrated resilience. Observers noted that it was more likely that Fab acknowledged Fat Joe, respected the social protocols, and simply moved on without engaging. In many ways, ignoring Wack entirely might have been a deliberate decision, a grown man's choice to maintain composure and avoid unnecessary conflict. This nuance often gets lost when stories are amplified online, exaggerated for attention, or spun to elevate one person's influence in the narrative. Despite these doubts, the VIP lounge had become the setting of a story that would ripple through hip-hop circles. Social media lit up with speculation. Was Fabolous really scared, or was this a masterclass in discretion? Could Wack 100 be intentionally building clout, framing the story in a way that positioned him as untouchable? The tension between fact, perception, and agenda created a dramatic narrative that captivated audiences. Every detail mattered. The number of people present, the exact sequence of greetings, the subtle shifts in body language, the whispered comments from onlookers. Wack's storytelling emphasized these moments, painting a vivid picture of chaos and control intertwined. Chains reflected light, eyes darted, whispers echoed. It was a scene where reputation was hung by threads and the outcome was observed by dozens in real time. For Fabolous, the implications were equally high stakes. Leaving a room abruptly could be misinterpreted, while engaging unnecessarily could escalate tension. The balance between being respected and avoiding confrontation is delicate, and in a VIP lounge filled with influential figures, every step and gesture carried amplified significance. It was a microcosm of the hip-hop world at large, visibility, perception, loyalty, and strategy all intersecting in a single room. Even as the night progressed and patrons moved between the main lounge and the VIP, whispers about the incident circulated. The story began to take on a life of its own. Some people repeated Wack's version verbatim, others speculated on what Fab might have been thinking. The ambiguity fueled debate. Was this a true display of dominance or a case of selective narrative control? Could a man really run from someone with such clout, or was this simply a careful dance of respect and distance? From a narrative standpoint, the incident was classic: conflict, tension, public observation, and the potential for reputation damage or enhancement. Wack 100's claim amplified his persona as a figure who could shake even the most established names. Fab's potential response, or lack thereof, added layers of suspense and intrigue. And with social media and recordings potentially floating around, every minor action became fodder for analysis, memes, and debate. Whether Fab truly ran or merely navigated the situation with discretion, the story had already cemented itself in the online discourse. Wack 100 had spun a tale of confrontation and influence. The VIP lounge had become a stage, and the narrative was set for fans, critics, and insiders to dissect for weeks. In the world of hip-hop, perception often outweighs reality, and this incident was a textbook example. Even a half-truth, presented with confidence and drama, can shift reputations, spark conversation, and dominate timelines. The night concluded not with clarity, but with suspense. Everyone in that VIP lounge became part of a story that was bigger than themselves, a story of reputation, perceived power, and the delicate dance between attention and authenticity. And while many questioned the accuracy of Wack's claims, the impact was undeniable. Hip-hop's social media feeds were alive, discussions were ongoing, and the ripple effects of that VIP encounter were just beginning. The morning after the VIP lounge incident, the story had already started to spread like wildfire. Social media feeds were buzzing, and clips, real or exaggerated, were circulating across platforms. Screenshots of comments, short videos, and eyewitness accounts filled timelines, each adding a layer to the narrative. Wack 100's version of the night, that Fabolous had allegedly ran from him in front of Fat Joe, was now being dissected by fans, critics, and industry insiders alike. The energy was electric, fueled by curiosity, doubt, and the natural appetite for drama in hip-hop culture. For Fabolous, the repercussions were immediate but subtle. Reputation in hip-hop isn't just about records, it's about perception, respect, and how one navigates moments of confrontation. Fans debated endlessly. Did Fab really run? Or was this a case of strategic avoidance, a way to maintain composure and avoid unnecessary tension in a room full of witnesses? To the untrained eye, leaving a VIP section might look like fear, but in reality, it could be simple timing or discretion. Every movement in that lounge was now magnified, analyzed, and interpreted in multiple ways. Meanwhile, Wack 100 leaned into the story, amplifying it on podcasts, social media, and interviews. He knew how to command attention, how to position himself as the catalyst in a dramatic narrative. Whether exaggerated or true, the narrative elevated his persona, the LA boogeyman, a man whose mere presence could allegedly shake New York legends in the Bay. The lines between fact and performance blurred, and that ambiguity worked in his favor. The intrigue, speculation, and debate all added to his visibility and influence. Industry figures began weighing in. Some sided with Wack, arguing that his influence was undeniable, that Fab's movement through the lounge was suspicious. Others defended Fabolous, pointing to his history of standing his ground, his track record in tense situations, and his reputation for handling confrontation with calm authority. The contrast between the two perspectives highlighted the delicate balance between street credibility, media narratives, and online perception. In the midst of the discussion, the VIP lounge itself became almost mythical. Witnesses' recollections varied. Some insisted Fab had moved quickly, almost disappearing. Others suggested he merely chose to avoid interaction, walking past without acknowledgement. Every account added tension, and as videos and snippets circulated, the story's impact magnified. The lounge, once a simple venue, transformed into a symbolic stage where power, attention, and influence intersected. As the day progressed, memes, commentary, and debates dominated platforms. Fans dissected body language, posture, and timing. Analysts compared the incident to prior interactions, like Fab's moments with Ray J or other confrontations in clubs across the country. The narrative evolved, sometimes detached from reality, as perception took precedence over fact. In hip-hop, perception often drives influence more than truth. And this incident was a textbook example of that dynamic. For Wack 100, the story served multiple purposes. It reinforced his persona, demonstrated his influence, and created buzz around his activities. For Fabolous, it presented a challenge: how to respond without giving undue attention or legitimizing the narrative. Silence, in this context, could be powerful. Not every slight requires retaliation. Sometimes, discretion and measured response speak louder than any bold claim. Fab's potential non-response became a calculated statement in itself, an assertion of authority and control over one's narrative. The public debate extended beyond social media. Podcasts, YouTube channels, and online forums dissected every angle. Questions arose about loyalty, alliances, and strategic moves. Why would Fab act the way he did? Was Wack seeking attention? Was there an ulterior motive tied to old conflicts, alliances, or publicity? The incident wasn't just a club story. It became a microcosm of hip-hop politics, reputation management, and media strategy. Amid the chaos, lessons emerged about narrative control. In today's landscape, a bold claim can dominate conversation, regardless of its accuracy. Wack 100 understood this instinctively. By presenting the story with confidence, he ensured it would trend, be repeated, and spark debate. Whether Fab actually ran was secondary. What mattered was the perception, the story circulation, and the tension it generated among fans and insiders alike. Fabolous, known for composure and experience, understood the stakes. Publicly disputing the story could escalate drama unnecessarily. Ignoring it, however, could signal confidence and dominance. Each choice carried consequences. In the fast-moving ecosystem of hip-hop culture, every gesture, statement, and silence becomes fodder for interpretation. Fab's restraint, then, was a demonstration of strategy, an assertion that not every provocation merits response. As days turned into weeks, the narrative continued to evolve. Analysts debated motives, fans speculated endlessly, and social media churned out commentary, clips, and memes. The incident became part of the ongoing conversation about respect, influence, and hierarchy in hip-hop. Wack 100's narrative had taken hold, but so had alternative interpretations, illustrating the complexity of perception versus reality. The story highlighted the balance between visibility and discretion. For artists like Fabolous, controlling perception without overreacting is a critical skill. For figures like Wack 100, shaping narrative and leveraging dramatic incidents enhances influence and visibility. The interplay between these forces created tension, discussion, and suspense, a storyline that extended far beyond the walls of the VIP lounge. The night at the VIP lounge was more than an isolated event. It has become a defining moment of narrative and perception in hip-hop. Every movement, reaction, and choice contributed to a larger story about influence, respect, and the subtle power dynamics that define the culture. What seemed like a simple club encounter evolved into a complex drama, and the public remained captivated, eager to see how each figure would navigate the aftermath. The days after the VIP lounge incident in San Francisco were electric. Social media had exploded with debate, clips, and commentary. Every angle, every body language cue, and every whispered conversation was being analyzed. Fans dissected videos frame by frame, while hip-hop commentators and influencers weighed in on who had the upper hand. The narrative of Wack 100 allegedly pressing Fabolous had captured attention, but the story now hinged on interpretation. Did Fab actually react in fear, or was this a display of strategic discretion? For Fabolous, reputation had always been a currency as valuable as any record deal. Standing his ground in tense moments had defined him for decades, and the suggestion that he had fled, even momentarily, challenged that image. But seasoned as he was, Fab understood the modern game. In today's hyper-connected digital era, not every claim needs immediate rebuttal. Sometimes, silence is stronger than any social media post or interview, especially when the narrative risks inflaming conflict unnecessarily. By choosing restraint, Fab turned the situation into a statement of confidence. Meanwhile, Wack 100 continued to lean into the story. Podcasts, clubhouse discussions, and interviews amplified his version of events. He presented himself as a figure whose mere presence could disrupt even New York legends, comparing this incident to previous chaotic events he'd been involved in. The framing was deliberate. It painted him as influential, unpredictable, and feared, a man whose energy carried weight across cities. Whether the details were accurate or slightly exaggerated, the result was undeniable: attention, speculation, and the strengthening of his persona. The social media ecosystem reacted predictably. Fans debated endlessly, splitting into factions, some believing Wack, others defending Fabolous. Memes, GIFs, and reaction videos flooded timelines, often exaggerating the drama. The narrative became larger than the event itself. It was no longer just a VIP lounge incident. It was a test of influence, street credibility, and strategic media positioning. Everyone had a stake in how the story unfolded, and every comment, share, or video added fuel to the fire. Analysts dissected both characters' histories. Fabolous had handled confrontations in Los Angeles and New York clubs for years without losing composure. Wack 100, a man known for shaping narratives and commanding attention, thrived in creating moments that blurred reality with perception. The tension between actual events and public interpretation illustrates a core principle in hip-hop culture. Perception often outweighs reality, and controlling the narrative is as powerful as any record or verse. As debates intensified, subtle signs emerged indicating how each figure managed the aftermath. Fab maintained his professionalism, focusing on music, appearances, and fans, avoiding unnecessary engagement with Wack's claims. This measured approach reinforced his credibility and demonstrated mastery over perception. By contrast, Wack 100's amplification of the story increased his visibility, but it also invited scrutiny. The dance between attention, influence, and authenticity was now on full display for the public. The narrative also underscored the role of loyalty and alliances in the culture. Wack's previous issues with Jim Jones, his references to chaotic past events, and the way he framed this encounter all highlighted the complex web of relationships in hip-hop. Every move carried potential implications. Alliances could be strained, reputations tested, and influence negotiated. In this context, even a small interaction in a VIP lounge could ripple through multiple cities, shaping perceptions for weeks or months. For fans, the story became a lesson in reading between the lines. Not every dramatic claim reflects reality. Fab's choice to remain composed and possibly ignore Wack spoke volumes about his understanding of power dynamics. Wack's decision to spin the narrative reinforced his persona as a master of perception. Together, these actions demonstrated a subtle but potent game, one of strategic engagement, media manipulation, and audience influence. By the end of the week, the peak of social media attention began to settle, but the story's impact lingered. Conversations on podcasts, forums, and private circles kept the incident alive. Analysts continued debating motives, interpretations, and implications. What seemed like a simple club encounter had evolved into a case study of reputation management, strategic media control, and the intersection of street credibility with public perception. The VIP lounge incident ultimately became less about who ran and more about how each figure navigated influence. Fab's measured restraint, focus on priorities, and avoidance of unnecessary confrontation preserved his standing and projected authority. Wack 100's narrative framing elevated his visibility and reinforced his reputation as someone whose presence carried weight, regardless of factual accuracy. The drama had played out in public, but the true mastery was in how both navigated perception. In the weeks that followed, both figures continued their paths, with the incident serving as a reference point in broader discussions about influence, credibility, and narrative control. The lesson was clear. In hip-hop, moments are often less important than the way they are presented. A single interaction in a club, when framed effectively, can shape public perception, spark debate, and reinforce or challenge reputations. For the culture, the story exemplified the modern dynamic of attention, narrative, and influence. Wack 100 had created drama that captured headlines, while Fabolous demonstrated the subtle power of restraint. Together, they highlighted the delicate balance between visibility, respect, and strategy in a world where perception is everything. The VIP lounge incident, once a single moment, became a lasting example of how influence, reputation, and narrative interplay in the high-stakes environment of hip-hop. By the end, it was evident that the night's tension and the subsequent debate had done more than entertain. It had provided a masterclass in media strategy, conflict navigation, and the power of perception. Every observer, from casual fans to industry insiders, had witnessed how a single incident could evolve into a multi-layered drama, influencing reputations and shaping narratives across cities. And in that, both Wack 100 and Fabolous emerged not just as participants, but as examples of control, strategy, and influence in the modern hip-hop landscape. Yo, listen up, hip-hop fans. You've seen the drama unfold in San Francisco, Wack 100 claiming he had Fabolous pressed in front of Fat Joe, the VIP lounge buzzing with witnesses, social media exploding, and the debate raging across timelines. But here's the truth. The story isn't just about what happened. It's about perception, strategy, and who really controls the narrative. And now, it's your turn to weigh in. Do you believe Fab really ran, or was this all calculated restraint? A masterclass in staying composed under pressure? Was Wack 100 spinning the story for clout, leverage, or real influence? This isn't just tea. It's a lesson in reputation, street credibility, and the subtle power moves that define hip-hop culture. Every gesture, every silence, every choice in that VIP lounge carried weight, and it's up to you to decide what it really means. So here's the deal. Smash that like button if you're ready to dive deeper into hip-hop drama, subscribe for more behind-the-scenes breakdowns of the biggest stories in the game, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment of the tension, the revelations, and the battles that shape the culture. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us, are you Team Wack or Team Fab? Do you see truth, strategy, or pure hype? The story doesn't end here. The streets, the clubs, and the feeds are alive, and the next chapter could blow up at any moment. Stay locked, stay sharp, and let's see who really moves the game. Don't just watch, be part of the conversation.